Welcome back to Startup Talk. I'm your host, the Startup Coach, founder of Toronto Starts, one of the largest startup communities in Canada. And with me today is Dan Pronovost, founder and COO of Driftscape. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate being here.
It's great to have you. Tell us about Driftscape.
Yes, Driftscape is a tech startup that myself and my founding partner, Chloe, started about 5 years ago. We are a digital tourism SaaS platform. So for our customers, which are typically municipalities, outdoor attractions, large events and festivals, what we are is a way for them to be able to tell their stories to their users and their residents and visitors their way within our product, which runs on mobile platforms and web. For users, it's just a really cool way as a visitor or curious local or a tourist to be able to explore your region and discover the unique things about your city, your region, or where you live that you couldn't otherwise. And we're an ad-free platform. So we're a way to get a non-polluted, non-biased message across in a really cool, fun, engaging way on your phones and on the web.
So before we get into the details of Driftscape, because I've got lots of questions, because you come on, read the website. I'm very interested in how some of these things work, and we're going to get into that. But I like to start with who the entrepreneur was growing up. Were you a handful for your parents? Were you studious, into music, sports, socializing? Who was young Dan?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was very studious. I loved math and sciences. And I will say that at a very young age, and I'm afraid this is really going to date me, but at a young age, I got into computers. And this was before there were computers in houses and homes and stuff. This goes way back. So they pretty much were kits. You had to go and more or less buy them and assemble them or use them, and there was no information. But at the age of 13, I bought and saved up for my first computer, and I just fell in love immediately. So I pretty much knew what I wanted to do at a very young age. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world to be able to write a program, a game, whatever, build it, run it, and do it. And so I've been in software ever since. So young Dan was a geek. I always have been a geek, always will be a geek, and I just love being a geek. Building, obviously evolved it to being a tech entrepreneur now. But I still write code. So young Dan was always a software guy.
Well, I'm going to date you and ask 13 years old, you went, saved up, and bought your first computer. What was that computer?
Oh my God. No one would recognize the name unless you really know your computer history. At the time, it was called an Ohio Scientific Instruments computer. They
Nice.
were what there was Heathkits at the time, was one of the, people might remember Heathkit computers, but they were for science people. They were meant as something you're going to goof around with. There wasn't the idea of home computing. Microsoft didn't exist, for example. Soon after that, Commodore was in the market. The very first Radio Shack, if people can believe it, TSR 80 computers came around a year or two after that, which, so all these are failed companies now, obviously. But at the time, that was computing. And if you wanted to learn BASIC or assembly programming, unless you had already gone to school in the 60s when I was born, and had actually worked in mainframe computers, this was the only introduction a young person can get into computers, was this way.
Yeah, my first was a VIC-20, and my buddy had a TSR 80 or TRS 80. I'm not sure which one it was, but
Know the world
yeah,
I grew up in.
yeah. You sounds
Exactly.
like
I
you were
love it.
just in a little bit ahead of me. But people, just to give you some perspective, you turn on the computer and you kind of get a blank screen. So if you wanted it to do anything, you actually had to program it, and not only that, you had to save it to a tape drive and load that every time. Otherwise, the computer really wouldn't do anything.
Yeah.
Not like today where it's all magic. It's that long dog time ago. That takes me back. So, at what point did you know you wanted to be an entrepreneur and run your own business? It's a little different from being
Mm.
in front of the computer doing stuff.
Yeah, that's a great question. It wasn't immediate, that's for sure. Although I will admit, even at a very young age, I always dreamed of being my own developer of games, for example, at that time, which any kid big into computers was, but that was just a dream. I didn't have any real ambitions or thoughts that I could go off and do that. I would say it was probably around 1993, around 1995, that I started getting serious about saying, I think I've learned enough to do this myself. And that was around that time that I quit, quote unquote, my day job, my wage slave job, let's say, and said, I'm going to go out on my own. At that time, that was the advent, getting into the early 2000s, the advent of mobile computing with Palm OS. I had my own products and things that I was doing, making some money from. Could do some consulting as well. And from there, cut my teeth a bit more, did a lot of work for tech startups, and then continued to evolve to the point of realizing, yeah, I think I could not just run a lone wolf company, but I can build a real company with like lots of employees and building a real big product line and so on. So it probably wasn't for another 15 years after being in computing that I felt I had enough experience to start. And realistically, probably 20 years from when I started in my 20s before I really did know enough.
And when did the idea for Driftscape come along? And what made you jump on that? As an entrepreneur, lots of ideas come up, and to actually implement something is time consuming and money. It means you're not working at something else or doing something else. So I like to say opportunity cost is infinite. So why this problem? Why Driftscape versus anything else?
Yeah. So what happened was about 5 years ago, a little bit more, I had exited the last startup that I was a minor founder in. We'd sold the company. And I was literally looking for something bigger. I wanted to, jump full in. I felt, yeah, now's the time. I want to start, quote unquote, my own company, not just be a minor player in it, but do it from scratch. So I was looking around for ideas. I had some ideas in the tour space. I love mobile apps, always have. So I was thinking about mobile apps, but I could never come up with an idea I thought that would make sense in the tour space, tour application space. I always thought, nah, I can build that, but there's no room for the market. I couldn't find the business case. At that same time, some colleagues of mine that I've worked with forever, including some of my own mentors when I was young, back in university days, were working also on what at the time was a research project that, in its infancy was the idea of Driftscape, but they had no software. So I got introduced to Chloe Dosberg, my business partner and founder as well, who was very passionate on the content side and this vision of helping organizations, cultural organizations, historical organizations, municipalities, be able to tell stories, be able to tell their stories their way without the pollution of a social media platform or a Facebook or an ad-based platform like Google, so that they can really focus on their messages. So we were introduced through mutual colleagues, and I started with them to help build an app because they didn't really have anything to build on. And then after about 3 months of working together, maturing the research into an actual product concept for iOS, I came back to them all and said, you know what, this is a really good company idea. Let's make a company and get serious about this. So we did, through angels investors that I've worked with over the years. We raised some money, and we started the company. And then we launched iOS at the end of that period, which would have been 2017, I guess. And then quickly followed suit with Android in the following spring. And then we've been building the company ever since.
That's amazing. And I want to get into now specifically, you talked about and hinted at a lot of things. What specifically does Driftscape do?
Yeah. So let's talk about it from a user perspective. So Driftscape is a native mobile app for Android and iOS, and it's a web application. And it's free for users, and it's absolutely ad-free. It's really about discovery. It's a discovery tool and an exploration tool. So let's give an example. You're new to Toronto and you're curious about Toronto. You're going to come visit Toronto. And sure, you can go all to the standard websites. You can do a search and you're going to find the CN Tower and Ripley's Museum. Great. That's just fine. And maybe you're the kind of person that's all you want to do, and just see the major things. That's not very many tourists. You want to experience from a local's perspective, from a local expert's perspective. And you want to learn about the culture, the history, and the unique sites and interests that you just can't find easily. For example, Artworks TO, which we may get into, Year of Public Art. We are the mobile app platform for them. Toronto is just filled with a tremendous amount of outdoor art that you walk by all the time and see in every ward and in every community. And you're not going to be able to learn about it. What's that amazing mural on the wall? What is that statue that's I've seen there for 20 years, 30 years? Driftscape, for example, with Artworks TO, is a unique platform that allows users to be able to discover these things, hear the stories, see videos by the artists who made it, hear their perspective of what's shared and what it's all about. So from our users' perspective, it's just an amazing way to explore. It's gamified. It has an augmented reality mode. There's rich multimedia. You can do self-guided tours. So it's a better way to explore where ad monetization is simply not part of the way that you see the content. You're in charge of the exploration. From our customer's point of view, they pay for it. They have to pay to use our product and be able to put their content and use it on an annual basis. It is a SaaS platform. And that's the only way Driftscape makes money.
So we'll get into the business model in a little bit, but as a user, how does it work? I just pull out my phone and take a look at what's around me, or do I use it to plan my day out? How do I interact with it?
Yeah, you can plan your day. We do have a trip planning feature where you can pick points of interest, POIs, as we call them, and put them all into an agenda and mail them to your friends even if you want, but you don't have to. In fact, that's a feature we only added a couple of years ago. We never started with that. It really was more, we let you explore. So you download the app, enter the app, and you can simply use the map to start navigating around. You can search based on categories and do what you want. But the app is location aware if you've given us permission. So for example, you can just put your phone in your pocket, turn it off, and start wandering around. When you get near really cool points of interest or ones that we think will be interesting based on your interest, we'll notify you, even when the app is not running. And you can tap on the notification, come right back into the app. Hey, you're near the statue. Do you want to learn a little bit more about that? So we have a location-based notification. That's a very important part of our product line on the mobile side. Obviously, that doesn't work on the website. It's not a thing, but we have the same content, of course. So we have location-aware notifications. We also have different gamified experiences, quests, scavenger hunts, and different ways that you can actually make a game of your exploration with your family or kids. We have a number of those in our Driftscape Gems collection, which is content that we've actually curated, part of our content team in Toronto, for example, and around North America actually now. So it's an exploration tool. You put it in your pocket. If you're not ready to download the app, because not everyone wants to download an app onto their phone, or just use the web version. Same stuff, same time. And we have really, really powerful tours. Tours are probably our most powerful feature. So for example, our Artworks TO, we have a whole bunch of different tours. And you can simply, if you want to do it on site, go on site, start playing the audio, put your phone in your pocket and move around. When you get to the next stop in the tour, or even out of order if you want, it'll start playing the audio for the next stop. Return to your phone. You can browse the gallery, look at the text, read a bit more. So tours are a very popular feature and fully supported in web and mobile.
So I'm going to jump around a little bit. You talked about Artworks TO. So, and a year of public art. First of all, can you tell me what Artworks TO and a year of public art is? And then I want to dive into that a bit.
Yeah, sure. So Artworks TO is a group out of the city of Toronto. It is a city of Toronto initiative. Their mandate and goal is to promote art and culture within the city of Toronto. The mayor a couple of years ago announced that this year, 2022, would be the year of public art. Some challenges with COVID, one of which was then to put a lot of focus on outdoor art so that it would be COVID safe. At least this was, and so as part of that initiative, they came to us. We had already been working with the city of Toronto on a number of initiatives, and they came to us and said, hey, we think this would be a great addition to use Driftscape for the Year of Public Art to be able to promote outdoor art that people just see all the time but don't know anything about. We thought that was a fantastic idea. So they signed up, and we very quickly got a tremendous amount of content. I think it's over 600 points of interest and tour stops combined across every single ward has coverage. And we worked directly to manage the whole project, not just provide the platform, but to also work with all the artists, the wards, the culture groups, historical groups to be able to create the content, in some cases even record the content, to bring it into people's hands. And so now all you have to do is go to their website. You can explore online. You could download the app and just navigate anywhere you are in Toronto or from the comfort of your own home to learn more about the amazing art that has been created throughout our city.
So people would pull out the app, they're using it, they're walking around the city, and they get near one of these pieces of art or landscapes, and some of the stuff is hidden or maybe not where they're coming near, say, I don't know, graffiti alley, if it's still called
Yeah,
that, and it'll say, hey, look at this stuff and the history and talk about it. That's amazing, because most people, one, they don't know a lot about their city, and the stuff they do know, they just heard from whoever who most likely just made it up.
yep.
So it's really nice to actually get some truth behind it. So that gets me to my next question. Who can add a tour or landmarks or information about a place? Because how do you know, like I said, that someone's not just making something up?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Greg. And that I'll go back because you've been curious about the history of the company, because it's a question we asked ourselves. Literally day one is there is a tendency, especially with social media platforms, to say, well, why don't we let our users generate the content? And so I'll jump ahead. Our answer in our product is no, users cannot. They can't even comment on the content. And we made that a very conscious decision from day one to not start there. Our content is created by our partners and our customers, period, and ourselves. We also are a content provider too, although not a huge one. We focus on very high quality, top-notch tours primarily across North America, but the majority of our content is by our partners. The reason we wanted to do that was exactly the point you've made, Craig, a couple times, and I think it's well said. How do you trust the content that you're viewing? You can't trust it unless it's from the group responsible for the thing you're looking at or want to learn about. Why not learn from a local expert, the person who knows about that, the city, the region, the event, the cultural organization? Let them tell you about it, because they're the ones who know. Let them tell their own story their way in a really powerful platform that lets it get across with video and audio and galleries and a really tailored, curated experience. So we made that decision not to allow user-generated content. There are other tourism-like platforms that went the other way and tried to make user-generated content, and generally it's a polluted environment. I add on top of that, if the minute you open the door to ad monetization, you're going to pollute the stream, no matter what. It's going to bias every decision you make towards promoting whatever gets the most eyeballs looking at your ads. And so we don't do that. All the way down to the creed of the company, right to the shareholders. That's just not what we wanted to build. Partially morally, including our investors. It's just like, yeah, we don't want to be a Facebook. And look at the trouble they've gotten in over the last 5 years. We absolutely didn't want to go there. And I'm very proud to say that our platform is what we were aiming to be. Just a great, pure way to explore that gives a true, valuable experience for the points of interest from the experts who know it.
And I'm not trying to derail you here, but I think there is some monetization options here that are potentially interesting, but from a user point of view, they wouldn't surface unless the user asked for them. Because I'm thinking, I'm walking around the city. Your app is taking me all over, God only knows, because I'm going from place to place. But I want a restaurant near me, or I want an ATM. It'd be nice to be able to say, click ATMs near me and know, and or restaurants or what have you, whether you want to monetize any of that. But when they're looking for something, you might as well give it to them, especially if you're around. So I think there might be some leeway there. I don't know if you're thinking about that, but
We are, and you raise a good point. There's lots of things users will want that go beyond true content like that. And we have been doing it slowly, but we have. So for example, just a few months ago, 4 months ago, we released automated business listings. But the way we monetize that is our customers pay for it. And what they are is a way for our customers to add businesses. Like some of our customers include BIAs, which could have hundreds, if not thousands of businesses within their geography. Well, it doesn't make sense to create a tailored, custom, personalized point of interest for every single one of those thousands of businesses. But they still have a mandate and a desire to list them. And our users have a desire to find them. What is a great restaurant nearby? So what we have is this cool tool, and we can offer it at a fraction of the price of a normal POI to our customers, a magnitude less. It scrapes the information, in effect, from Google, My Business, and other sources, and creates a beautiful point of interest within the app automatically. And so this is a great way of splitting the difference. Our users can get access to that information. We curate that experience so it doesn't pollute anything else. They can still search for it, find me a restaurant near me, etc. Great for our customers because they don't cost as much, so they can add more of them into the product line. And yet it allows us to still monetize that. Is it an ad? No. But is it something that's being promoted? Yes. That's an example. We have other things like that we're going towards, but I just don't see a future where all of a sudden you're reading a point of interest and smack in the middle is an ad for Viagra. It's just not going to happen.
no, absolutely not. That makes no sense to me. But if you're standing in front of a statue and you're reading about a local artist who happens to sell local art, and you say, where can I find local art from this artist? It's relevant to someone who's like, wow, this is great. I'd love to find something authentic by this person or what have you.
You got it. That's the direction we have started moving towards and adding. We have sponsored content. Some of our partners will find corporate sponsors for their content. At the bottom will say sponsored by, brought to you by. That's fair game. We have a number of things in our roadmap that we're engineering that will, for example, imagine if users can opt in for communication from an organization. I want to learn more about historical cultural events in city X, so I'll sign up. And then now there could be direct communication, opt-in communication from that organization. We have a lot of things like that coming down the pipe.
Fantastic. So let's get back on track. Most people take their hometown for granted.
Yeah.
I know so many people have never been, like you mentioned, a couple of things like the CN Tower, but they've never been to any of the beaches in Toronto or the CNE, for example, I mentioned before we started recording. And there's so many other places in Toronto to go to. How are you getting people like this to use your app?
Mm. Yeah, that's a great question too. When we started the company 5 years ago, I'll admit to being very naive about some things, and I think a lot of tech founders are. And honestly, sometimes that naivete is actually a good thing to have, because if you knew the actual truth of how hard things are, you might never not start it. We thought if we built an app like this without ads that had cool content, users would just flock to us. Won't have to market it, won't have to do anything. Well, that's not the reality of the world we live in anymore in the mobile world, for example. It's not that easy to get people to download things, even if it is a cool experience. So we have learned humbly that you have to spend time and money marketing our product. So we spend equal amounts of time promoting Driftscape as we do promoting our customers. And because Driftscape is a single application, it isn't a white label solution as such, or we don't normally sell it as that. It's a single app. We have responsibility to build our user base. So how do we do it? We have a large marketing team that maintains our social media channels. We buy SEO ads ourselves. We're right now expanding into the US. And that has required a lot of time and energy to be able to expand into those markets. We create content. Every time we add a new geography, we go in with what we call our Driftscape Gems collection, and we create content in those geographies to help seed some stuff. But ultimately, in theory, it's a nice circular wheel. We land a customer, they add content. more people look at it, other customers look at it, they want to add more content. Toronto, of course, has our most content because that's where we started. So it's very, very rich. We do have content coast to coast in Canada. But it is hard. It's harder sometimes to get more users to download than you'd think. It helps having partners like Artworks TO, which, there's been ads and bus stops and stuff, and it's been fantastic. But it's work. It is work to build up your user base and take responsibility for that.
Also, I think sometimes it's a little work to find out what people really want. And I say that from as you're talking to me, I'm thinking of all sorts of crazy things like what about, I let me ask this next question because it leads into my crazy thoughts. What types of tours are there and how do they work? Because I can think of all sorts of crazy types of tours, and I'll be following up with some questions on that.
Sure. Yeah, tours are our primary feature. So what kind of tours do we have? They are truly all over the map. But I'll give you some of the ones I think are most novel, particularly the ones we didn't see the kind of customer. So example, we have food tours. We never thought we would target food tour operators. They came to us, and we have one, we have them all over the place, but we even have one in Thailand, if you can believe it. And primarily what they do a tour is from restaurant to restaurant or to food location or brewery to brewery. And so those ones are really cool. And they also typically then will use our coupon system. We have a system where you can couple in a coupon management system. So if the business could do coupons, 2-for-1 drinks, whatever, and then we manage that within the app and do it securely. That tends to resonate very well with food tours and the businesses and the restaurants. So the food restaurant one was one I never predicted when we started. I thought all kinds of segments, but I never thought about that one. So those ones are a lot of fun. We have tours that focus on outdoor parks. So that is very common, especially in rural communities that may not have a CN Tower or lots of statues or art exhibits to build a tour around. So, for example, our rural communities, I'll give you an example. Wikimicom First Nation, which is one of our Indigenous customers in Northern Ontario, they have an outdoor walking tour, and it highlights native vegetations and medicinal practices and different fauna and flora that's along their tour that promotes their culture and their cultural use and their cultural language. They include audio tracks for their language for the various things, like, this flower is like this. I think that's just a fantastic way to tell their story their way. You can learn a little bit about their community, you can learn about their past and their history, and you can learn their language. What a novel way to use a tour feature. And then Artworks TO, I think, is probably the largest number of tours with a single focus. And those tours are all audio video tours that are really talking about the history and the art exhibit you're looking at or the art region. Here's this mural. This is what it's about. And what's really cool, in many cases, it's the artist who actually painted it or talking or in the video, giving a context and a story about it and when it was made and why they painted it and why they got there or why they built it. Those would be some examples of tours. We have other tours that are gamified experiences. In our quests, sometimes you can make it kind of like a game. You got to go from stop to stop and answer questions along the way. So those are a few examples.
So I can think off the top of my head, and there was a William Gibson book where they had something like this going on, where I would say, what about history of organized crime in Toronto tours, or the William Gibson model they specifically had. I think it was death scenes in California where you'd walk by and there'd be this virtual reality piece where you would see the crime scene and whatnot. And you laugh, but true crime podcasts and whatnot are very, very popular. And you would think that if you wanted to start talking about even the history of the Leafs and, how they move from one place to another, and you could talk about all these different types of things, and just open it up and let people, and I don't want to say open it up, but maybe go to the sources of those individuals, like maybe the person who's doing the true crime podcasts around Toronto. I don't know if there are, but you get the idea. I think it's a question when I say, I don't know what's really going to hook people 1,000 times and say, is it, well, I can now live these true crimes. I can walk through the thing and say, this what happened and this is where he lived and this is where the courtroom happened. Well, there's a thousand different things that people are interested in. And I look at this and I think what's really going to be exciting is something we haven't thought of yet.
I agree. Craig, that's a brilliant idea. I concur completely. The only challenge is so we are doing that, but here's the thing we wrestle with. We are a for-profit company. Sometimes people get confused because we're such a social enterprise good company. It's like, well, you must be nonprofit. No, we're investor back. We're for real. We're a tech startup. We got to make money. And so that's where the challenge lies. And it's always a tricky balance. It's like, okay, somebody, say an individual knows some great let's just say haunted stories in Toronto, which is a very strong interest area with people. Great. Now, who's going to pay to make that tour and host it in our platform? So sometimes we struggle with, well, that's great as long as, say, the City of Toronto or some ward or BIA or cultural group who has money is willing to finance that content. But typically, sometimes the creators don't have the money for that. And so it's always a balancing act for us. Because we can't just give it away, and we don't just give it away. And that's where you wrestle with monetization strategies from day one. Like, well, maybe you don't make anyone pay, and then it's user-based, and the content drives itself. Those are tough questions, and there's no perfect answer. All I can say is we've chosen a certain path. So when we look at content like that, what we do is we encourage them to work within their region or community or city or whatever, to be able to promote themselves so that somebody can buy the platform, and then the content can be created and hosted within the platform.
So when you're talking about creating the content, what is the process like for that? Because we talk about all these things, and what is the cost for something? I'm sure it ranges all over the place, but now we're getting into it because I got a couple of questions here about 360 tours and user generated content. So I want to circle back to those in a minute. But what's time, what types of things are involved, and what's the cost involved in creating? Because obviously one of your issues is quality. You don't want somebody just putting in random crap that looks and sounds and is awful, that they recorded while they're walking on their iPhone and they're breathing heavy, like all the bad things you can possibly imagine. And you want it to be accurate to whatever the information's going on, so people are getting informed and they're not. So again, what's that process like, and how?
Sure. So we have a content management system, the CMS. It runs on the web. You do not add content from your phone. You don't shoot your videos and just press a button and go live. It's not a social media platform. We really aren't. So we have a full CMS. So when customers sign up, they get access to this lovely CMS that we've had. It's exceedingly powerful, very, very easy to use. We have a full customer success onboarding team that brings our customers on board. We have tons of videos, how-to videos, documentation. It's as easy as cutting and pasting in Word, is what my sales team likes to tell people. They're typically up and running in a day or so with some content. It lets you upload the videos, edit in a rich editor, the content, and yet it constrains that process. So a tour, for example, is a main tour and a bunch of stops. You can't deviate from that. Media is media. It's audio, it's video, it's pictures. We shove them all in the gallery at the top. You don't have to format it. You don't have to think about it. We take care of that for you. So we have a rich CMS, and all our customers get to use it. I'm very proud to announce that it's now multilingual support for French and English. All of our customers can create French and English content that works absolutely across the board, from web to mobile app. We're now targeting Quebec because that was a bit of an obstacle until we had full and complete localized and content localization. You can even do things like have audio tracks in French and English. And in the French version, only the French one shows up. And in the English, if you're choosing English, only English. So the process is, it's a CMS. Once you say it goes live, it just shows up. It's instant updates. This is 100% SaaS cloud-based delivery. The apps just magically shows up. Don't have to think about it. Shows up in the web pages. You can embed Driftscape into your own website. If you're City of Toronto, as for example, our WorksTO, they obviously embed Driftscape right into their website, so you can explore from there. All of the updates are live. You asked two questions there: how, and then how much does it cost?
Yes.
I'll answer the latter. Our pricing ranges from, at the low end, a couple $1,000s a year, all the way up to customers paying, say, $20,000 a year for very high-end plans. And it is more or less based on content. How much content do you want to put in the platform? That's the strongest variable, but it does depend on, to a small degree, features like, do you want quests? Would you like micro regions, which are a location-aware way the app can say, hey, you're inside a region. Would you like to promote special things within your region that shows and highlights uniquely? So we have a few features. Automated business listings are a separate package, not in every product line, although multilingual is in every package. Everybody can create multilingual content. So the price point is such that there's two things. One, we have to charge enough that we make money. It's not really worth someone coming on.
Of course, you're in the business to be in business.
Yeah. So, if you're, a guy or person who's built, 2 haunted tours, for example, sorry to pick on haunted tours, but sure thing. In Toronto, and you're like, great, I want to have my 2 haunted tours on Driftscape. Well, if you can afford $2,000, maybe you can be on Driftscape every year. But typically what would happen, it would be a larger collective group that would assemble to become a platform customer.
I'm already thinking about what I should be doing with you. So
awesome. We do have, it's interesting. It surprises me, but we have a handful of customers who are very, very small operators. I mentioned the food tour space. Those tend to be individuals or a couple who are experts in their cuisine in their region. We have a handful of them. And I always thought from the start, there's no way they can afford Driftscape. This is too small. But no, they can, and they do. That's an example. Foreign tours, for regional tours, you're an expert in some region and just want to promote your tours. And then inside Driftscape, you can either have links to more stuff you can buy. How do they monetize? Well, they can actually make the tours private. We have a way to actually make the content hidden so that they can actually only give links to paying customers and so on. So it does surprise me, but I've learned that these price points are not a big obstacle, even for the smallest of small businesses, nor for the largest of large businesses. On the other end of the scale, I'd say the largest offering we have would be a white label solution. City of Collingwood is our current largest white label solution. So they have their own app. It's called the Discover Collingwood app, but it's Driftscape. Under the covers, it's Driftscape. And that's what they wanted. Day one, they wanted that. They created a public RFP. We won the bid. And I'm very proud to say, they're running live, have been running with us a couple of years now. You can download their app with their content. It's branded with their branding. That's what they wanted. That, of course, is a bit more expensive. We have to charge significantly more for a white label solution like that. But it's also an option.
Makes perfect sense. And I've got some interesting ideas, and let's follow up with me afterwards, because I'd like to do something similar to what's going on with Artworks TO. We do some stuff with City of Toronto, but let's face it. Hey, if you're listening, you might beat me to it, but what the heck? Like, we're trying to put a Toronto on the startup map, so why not a startup tour? That'd be incubators, accelerators, VCs, angel networks, all the different resources that the City of Toronto has to offer people who are in Toronto, and how to get in and what each of them do. Like, there's a lot of things that I could partner with cities or the incubators, accelerators, and all that kind of stuff to put these things together. So keep those in mind, and thinking outside of the box. If anybody else is listening, you might be able to do these types of things for your industries too. So
love it.
Yeah. Which, jumping out to a couple of questions here. I noticed that Driftscape has 360 tours and tour autoplay. Can you speak a little more about these features?
Oh, cool. Yeah, this is a relatively new feature. What we found is we have some indoor museums as customers as well. We didn't build Driftscape from day one for indoor spaces, but it does work. And what they wanted to do was to be able to have a way to navigate in virtual reality their indoor spaces. And so we support a few indoor tour platforms, including Momentum, which can do 360 tours. So you record these with your camera. Honestly, it doesn't take much more than that. And you, from a user point of view, it's just in our gallery. You can click on it and you can navigate into their museum. You can see the points of interest within their museum, and you can tap on them and learn more and virtually work your way through. So we support a couple 360 tour platforms. They're surprisingly easy to record. They're obviously content. You have to spend time writing content and describing them. But we find they're a great companion to Driftscape. They fit into our product line perfectly. They work in the web version. They work in the mobile version. So they're pretty cool.
So as a user, do I pay for these tours?
Nope.
So this leads me into our other question from someone on YouTube, Dr. A32. Why not allow users contribute with some restrictions, but the curator's content is validated? They suggest that this will drive traction on the user's end, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's your model.
Well, it's not black and white. So I'm not going to discount the idea, because believe me, we spent a lot of time in the first year thinking about that and wrestling emotionally, not white knuckling, worrying. Should we do that? Shouldn't we? I don't think there's anything wrong with that idea as long as you curate the experience. So we'd have to be more Wikipedia-like in the sense that if we allowed users to generate content, it'd have to be curated by some process. Wiki uses a pyramid-like architecture for that. I don't know if we go that far. We may be the curator. So there's nothing fundamentally wrong with letting users generate content. But we're a tech startup. We raise money, got to make money. And maybe if I'd raised 10 times as much money, I would be more open to having said, well, let's just throw 3 developers on user-generated content and see where it goes. But we are a very, very lean startup. I've raised money, but not enough that I can just do everything I want to. So we made a decision to not yet focus on user-generated content. But there is nothing wrong with the idea. It could happen. It may well happen. Might happen sooner than you think, depending on where the company goes.
Great. Thanks for that. We got a couple other questions coming in. So I think our people watching are taking over, which is great. How much of Canada can I explore using Driftscape as of today?
Absolutely, coast to coast. Every province, every territory has content. We even have some national partners. One of the ones that I think is the coolest, and they've been on our platform for several years now, is Historica Canada. They're the people who create the Heritage Minute videos. Certainly, Craig, you and I at our age remember them on TV. They were on TV all the time. Most people remember them. I Smell Burnt Toast, the one about the Montreal surgeon who did the brain surgery and so on. They've been one of our customers, and we're very proud to have them on. So every single Heritage Minute video is in the product, and tons of other content. They are a nonprofit organization responsible for promoting Canadian heritage for, 50 years now. So that's an example, and that gives us absolute coverage of tons of cool stuff that you would not normally learn about from coast to coast. We have customers in every province now. So we have good coverage. Now, is it enough? It's never going to be enough. We're close to 7,000 points of interest, and I'm always looking for more. We're always looking for more customers. US, I wish we had more. We're working on it. Again, lean startup, can only do so much at one time. But it doesn't matter where you live, you're going to find stuff. Is it going to be the same stuff you would find with Google search? No. And is it going to be as saturated as Google search? No. But it's not going to be polluted by ads, and you're going to find stuff you would never find out anywhere else.
Lots of great questions.
Yes.
Now, I have to admit, I have no idea about your competition in this space. So you have to tell me what makes you different than your competition or using other tools.
Yeah. Digital tourism is a growing space. I'd say 5 years ago when we started, it was very, very small. And I say digital tourism because it encompasses more than just what Driftscape is today. To be honest, and every tech person will say this about their own company. We're unique. Nobody has exactly what is Driftscape. Having said that, there's a lot of companies that do small bits of what we do. For example, there are tourism SaaS operator or digital operators who focus, say, on just audio tours in your car or in walking, and that's all they do. Fine. That's great. There's a few that also went out of business and ran out of money, big ones, no less. Well, we do that as just one of 100 things. So one of the things that I'm proud of after 5 years, and I think I have the track record to be able to say it somewhat immodestly, is we have more tourism features, digital tourism features than any of our competitors by far. You know, we just do so much more. We can focus on engineering. Remember, I am a software developer. I still write code in my company, whether I like to or not. So I'm very proud that we've been able to add more features, things like multilingual support built right in from the CMSO. Good luck finding that, you know, built in such an essential way with more languages to come now that we've built the framework, which is easy, obviously. We have things in our own like roadmap like auto translation. Imagine all of our content instantly is available in French or Spanish with an auto translation from Google behind the scenes. That'd be pretty cool. Well, you can imagine that's not that hard for us to do. So I think what really differentiates from our competitors is our breadth and to be able to do it on less of a budget, frankly. It's a lot of product for a small company, but we do it and we manage.
Another great question. Do you highlight First Nation stories?
Absolutely. We're very, very proud of our First Nation partners. For example, our very first Indigenous partner is a group called First Story. And this is a research group, an academic group, an Indigenous group that focuses on the history of Indigenous peoples in Toronto specifically. So they have been in our product since day one, and they continue to be usually the top 3 popular organizations within our app. When I look at our statistics, which of course we have full analytics and our background, which our customers get their own analytics, and then we get them over one. First Story is always one of the most popular, and it really is cool. So they have complete tours. You can go take the tour of the Don Valley that talks about what the history was like before settlers arrived, and you can see a very unique perspective of Toronto from a set of eyes and an experience that's unique. Grand River Six Nations was one of our first paid Indigenous customers and continues to be a very important customer that we're very proud to have on our platform. They've done just amazing things with their content. In their case, mostly to support their own community. It's really about creating a message that, yes, anyone could look at, but they're really trying to provide a platform that helps their community and grow their community and create culture and a sense of self. Wakimacom, I've already mentioned as well, in Northern Ontario on Manitoulin Island. So we're always very, very happy to provide a voice in their language, in their stories. That's what it's all about. So it resonates with Indigenous communities, of course.
We got 2 questions here related to loading content. So we'll start with the first one. How tech savvy do your partners need to be to use your platform to map their stories? They're hearing me talk to you and your tech background and computers that they never know existed. How technical do people have to be to you for me, for example, say I want to do startup Toronto tours. How technical do I have to be to upload tours and use that?
Yeah, great question. Yes. So the simple answer is you don't have to be technical at all. If you've ever created a text document like with Word or Google Docs or anything, you can add content into Driftscape. It's trivial. It really is a very simple to use CMS. It guides you through the process. I put it at that level and way, way easier than say creating a website, which even with the best modern website tools like Wix and WordPress, it's way easier than that. Way, way easier. And that's because we control a lot of the formatting and the structure. You worry about the content. Let's say, for example, audio, there's a button that says like add media. You've got the audio track, click on it, done. That's it. It's done. You've added a caption maybe for a video. You got a video on YouTube, put the YouTube link, done. It is trivial to add content. Most of our partners stress about that, that they come on board, they're like, oh my God, I'm going to have to hire 3 people, 4 people. We're like, no, you won't, trust us. And they don't trust us. They're always worried about that because it's a resource cost, of course. And then they get into it and they're usually up and running in a couple months, like live running up in a couple months with, 20, 30, 100 points of interest. It's way easier than they typically think. Keeping it current does require time. Some of our partners, of course, they have timely content. It changes. An event or a festival, it will change. And so it is important to keep people populating if it's the kind of content that can change. Artwork studio, of course, it's not going to change. Those art exhibits don't, roughly, generally speaking, change very often. So it's a one-time task, but it's pretty easy.
I didn't ask you about quests. What are quests and how do they work? Can you give us an
Yeah.
example?
Yes, I really love quests. I have to admit, it's a bit of a personal passion when we added that to the product line. I'm not sure it's the most, to be very blunt and honest, the most successful part of our product line. But I think it's because I just thought it was so cool. What are quests? It's an on-site gamified experience in our augmented reality mode. Both Android and iOS have an augmented reality mode. What does that mean? You tap the button for the mode, put your phone up, move it around, and you're going to see the points of interest on your screen where they belong. Small if they're far away, close if you're right in front of it. Quest is a game. What it does is you're on site and you want to try this quest. So you click on the quest and it says, great, all ready to start this quest. It's like a scavenger hunt and you start it. Excuse me. So it's going to say, okay, the first stop on this quest is nearby. You got to move to it. Here's some hints. And so you're going to have to figure out where it is based on the hints and move your phone. And as you get closer, it's going to say, you're getting closer, you're getting closer. And then eventually it's going to show up on your screen and tell you, you're there. And you move your phone around, go, there's the thing. Now you tap on it. You tap on the point of interest for the next stop in the quest. You open it up, tells you some cool information. You're like, I didn't know about that thing. That was the statue or whatever it is that's along the quest. And then it gives you a hint for the next stop. And then you go back to the mode and you search around. So it's a gamified experience that our customers create, or we've created a whole bunch in Toronto as well as part of our Driftscape Gems collection. You can just try them out. They're a lot of fun. They are geared to be not too hard so that you can take your family and your kids on it and you can give them the phone and they try to figure it out too and wander around. And you can do it from home. We design quests so that, you don't have to be on site. In that case, you do it from the map mode. So you literally, in the 2D map mode, you have to zoom in and out and it gives you the same hints, but you're doing it from a map. That's not the same experience, but at least we very much wanted to make sure that in Driftscape, everything you can do either there or not there. We want to make sure that both curious locals and tourists who are not there yet can experience everything. So we try hard to make sure that there's a parallel for everything.
Sounds great. And I used to do geo mapping with my kids, and this sounds like a more fun, more modern version of it.
It is easier to use than geocaching because you don't have to look at lats and long. Just pull out your phone and wander around. It's a lot of fun and not as dangerous as Pokemon Go. You get a lot of corollaries to that. It's like, it's not as you're not sitting there trying to fire lasers or blow things up or anything and then wander into the street and get hit by a car. It's a far more curated experience.
We have another question here, and I think we've kind of answered it, but I'd like to make sure we have. How does the information get into the app? Is it from Google Maps? It sounds like it's from the Driftscape staff or from their partners specifically.
Correct. Primarily our points of interest, all the information is from our partners or from us when we create. It's from the creator of the content manually. The only exception are the automated business listings, which we are literally automated primarily from online sources and a proprietary technology. Those are automated, and they're meant only for businesses primarily. Although you can actually, our customers who use that, all they do is give us the name of the business and potentially an address. And we just automatically have processes that every month update it. You can actually put anything in there. If you put the CN Tower, it would show up. It's pretty cool. We get pictures automatically. We get their hours of business, their website. We put it all together in a nice listing. That is the only automated content.
Is the augmented reality feature available for both iOS and Android?
Yes, we just a few months ago, I think it was December of last year, released it for Android, which was a big task. That was no trivial feat because augmented reality, it's been on iOS for a while, and they have done an amazing job supporting it for developers. It's a very, very advanced, what we call toolkit. There is no equivalent on Android yet. They have tried to do things, but it's miles from the level of complexity of iOS. So we had to build a lot of the toolkit ourselves. But I'm very proud to say we have 100% equivalence on Android. Hold up your phone, points of interest in the distance. As you walk to it, it gets bigger, tap on it, works exactly the same way.
A lot of it's audio, a lot of it's visual. What kind of multi-language support do you have?
Yeah. So just recently, like in the last month, we've released our full multilingual support for French and English. Excuse me. That allows our customers to enter English and French. So for example, let's say they have a video, both in English and in French, one for English, one for French. They can add both videos and tag one to be only in the English language and only one to be in the French language. Or let's say same thing with an audio track, but the images, they might not make any difference. And so they simply would say this image should show up in every language. And when you open up such a point of interest in Driftscape, there's a button, just switch the language, or just go to the setting menu and change the whole app from English to French. And then only the French will show up. It is fairly new for us. We just launched this. We don't have a ton of French content yet. We have translated some of our own Driftscape Gem tours, and we're doing a lot more of it. And we have some of our customers, especially international organizations and French organizations, are going live as we speak, including CDEM in Manitoba, that is an organization focusing on the French community there, who will focus primarily on French content.
And you were right when we said at the beginning of this, we had no idea where this conversation is going to go, because I don't think I got to half the questions I had planned, but I got two more. What is next for you and Driftscape?
Yeah. Well, I can't talk about everything in our future in a public forum, but I can talk about some things. So we're growing. I have always envisioned Driftscape to be an international company, having content all around the world. So that's still a priority for us. We're focusing first on the US market. We had to delay that during COVID. Literally, we were just starting to open US market when COVID started, and that totally got kiboshed, of course. Now that COVID is ebbing, or at least people's reaction to it is, we are working again on the US market. It takes us time to open a new market. We're finding the reception's great, but it's still effort to build any new geography. Every province took a lot of effort to build in, and it will be the same as true in the US. I'd love to see Driftscape around the world. There's no reason it can't have content everywhere and be a tool for everyone now that we have multilingual support. So that's one direction we're heading, for sure. I'd like to see the company grow bigger. I don't like running on a very small amount of money. You know, you can only grow so fast with a couple $1 million, but you can grow a lot faster if you got 10 or 20 $million. So we are at the stage, we're no longer a startup, long since past that really. And we should be moving to that next stage of growth, which will require more money. And that's fine. We have growth, we have money, success, I should say. So we're working hard to see where the next steps take us so that we can grow faster.
And there are more and more funding options these days than ever before. So yeah, if you need to grow fast, there's lots of money available in different formats. That's amazing. Where can people go to find out more about Driftscape?
Our website is the easiest place for both customers and users. So driftscape.com, DRIFTSCAPE, Driftscape. Go there. There's a link to download, takes you to the stores. There's the web version. You can just use it. If you're a customer, there's a customer page. There's two sides of our website, of course, customer facing and user facing. The website's the best place to start, or just search on Driftscape in the App Store and you'll find us.
Dan, I really appreciate taking the time today. We ran over. I apologize for that. We had lots of great questions, and this was a great conversation. Thank you for sharing it with us.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. Thanks you so much, Greg, for your time too.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us.